Happy Tuesday, everybody. This is Andi with Two Perspectives Studio. I am the Prop Chef, and today is Try It Tuesday inside the Crafting Collective. If you're joining me live, you can give me a comment. I see Stacy and Renee. Hey, guys, how are you? If you're joining me on a replay, just because I screwed up the first part of my video, but if you're joining me on a replay, you can hashtag replay. Let me know that you were here. Today, since I took a poll the other day, today is going to be Donut Day. Hi, Colleen and Sandy and Jamie. So I'm going to do some donuts, some realistic style donuts, a few different ways. I set my camera off to the side today, so hopefully I'm going to remember to look over here at you instead of over here where I normally look at you. I thought maybe you had a little bit larger surface area. I gotta get my keyboard out of here. I was not watching the clock when Jan was on. Sorry about that, guys. Came on a couple minutes late. Hi, Margarita. So I'm gonna do a few different donuts, styles of donuts, I guess, and use some different ingredients to do them different styles, and they all, I think, look fairly realistic, or you know, more like what you would want to go and buy and consume yourself, even though you can't eat these, but they're, you know, they're really nice to display, and that's what I'm here for, is the realistic part of the fake foods. I don't do much of the whimsy, although I do like it. So I'm going to show you sort of what I was working on to show you. I'm going to just pull this up in view. Now this little guy here is actually pretty old. This one is done with a cinnamon dough. It's a very dark, I don't know if I can get you close over there, but you can kind of see the textural component on this one. It actually looks like a cake donut. And the closer you get to it, the more realistic it looks. It's made out of primarily cinnamon. It smells, I made this one over a year ago. It still smells pretty strong of cinnamon. These little cinnamon dough cakes and donuts and cookies and all the different things that you can make. It's a great gingerbread cake maker because of that dark complexion that it has. Like I said, this was just a little leftover donut that I made out of some about a year ago. I put a little bit of chocolate glaze and then a little bit of the white drizzle over the top of it. And it's still, I mean, it's a really hard product. You could make these into ornaments easily before you bake off, because this is a baked dough. It's not an air, well, you can actually air dry it, but I usually bake it. You could put a hook in here and make a bunch of little donut ornaments out of this, and it'll make your room and your tree and everything smell so good, if you like the cinnamon scent. And you can add other spices in with it without worrying about bugs. Cinnamon and nutmeg, cardamom, they're all deterrents for pests, so you don't have to worry about using spices like that in any of your doughs, including salt dough, which I use a lot. I am live again first thing Thursday morning, right after Shelby, I think, at 7 o'clock in the morning Thursday, with the live Sales and Crafting Down South group. I'm going to be showing how to do a gingerbread cake, and I almost always have dough left over, so I'll probably do some sort of ornament with the leftover dough. But I will be showing how to make this dough, how to form it, how to bake it, and what you can do with it. So that'll be Thursday morning. Just a little, what's coming up next? Hi, Janice. Angel, is it Angel? Is that how you say that? Or is it Angel? I'm not sure how you, and I don't know how you would tell me how to say that. You could make a little emoji of an angel if it's Angel, but if it's Angel, you can say, yes, you're right. So the clay of choice for me for the realistic foods is Model Magic. I don't use, well, that's not true. I do use some foam clay for mostly accessory items like jalapenos and mushrooms, tomatoes, that kind of thing. I use foam clays for that, not only because they're already colored the way that I want them, but they're easier to interact with my dishes that I make, because I do like full plate dishes sometimes and I need accessory pieces. So I use the air dry foam clay for that. But for the actual, like the meat of the market kind of thing, my go-to is always Model Magic. It's a more dense clay. It's a little more difficult to work with, but it doesn't shrink as much, like not nearly as much. It hardly shrinks at all. It is Angel. Okay, I'll remember. I don't think I've seen you on here before, so welcome to my page. I am the realistic fig baker. For Model Magic, as some of you guys know, you have to knead it a lot more than you do foam clay. It takes between like 5 and 10 minutes. I've already kneaded this. I take them out of the package, and I have a tile surface, so I use my tile to really roll and stretch my clays to make sure that I get it good and warmed up and stretchable. You don't want any breakage like that when you go to pull it. You want it to be like taffy when you're using Model Magic. That way you don't get the cracking when it dries. This is air dry, just like foam clay. Takes about 24 hours, just like foam clay, for most things. I mean, if you make thicker objects, it takes a little bit longer. But the kneading process, you really have to work on. I did do some of this ahead of time. Apparently I didn't do enough because my clay is still snapping a little bit. But I want to show you how I make, and I haven't put the filling in this yet, but this is a powdered sugar topped realistic style jelly donut. Now you can put sugar topping on here or the powdered sugar, which is what I did here. Either one work. If you're looking for a place to get a powdered sugar like this that's gonna stick and not fall off when you put it on, I sell these items in my Etsy shop. I also sell them on Wednesday. I'm on usually Wednesday morning with live sales, and I sell things at a discount. So if you're looking for something other than powder or cornstarch to use for your powdered sugar, I sell one that's pulverized glass. That's what this is. It sticks to anything very well. It doesn't come off. It's a really nice product and very realistic. I'm also going to be using, for when Cece was on this morning, she was talking about apple cider donuts. Hi Alicia, how you feeling? She was talking about the apple cider donuts this morning. So I just quickly put this one together, more like a cake donut. I didn't even finish the bottom of it yet. I just did the top, because you kind of have to do them, you have to do the one and then, you know, dry it and then flip it over and do the other for it to look just right. So I basically just did the top part of this. But this is finished with another product that I make in the glass category. I have finishing sugars. I started out by using one of my favorites. This is the gingerbread. It's a mixture of a bunch of different kinds of granulated glass. But I ended up actually going over it with the one that's called salted caramel, because I thought it looked better as an apple cider donut. So I switched and went to that one, and it really does look pretty realistic as far as an apple cider goes. And I really like the sugar, and it doesn't come off. So I'm going to be using those, well, the one probably. I may duplicate what I did here just because I think it looks pretty good. I tried to shape a realistic cruller. I'm not sure that I got it as lofty. Hi Chelsea. You say hi Mo, but not hi Mom. Hi Tina. But I did some of the cruller indentations on here and sort of made the puffy fry line, sort of like a French cruller would be. I have not painted this one yet. And this would be your typical glazed donut. I used and I tell everybody, if you're trying to make realistic glazed donuts, I make some icing glaze material that it looks white in the can, but it dries clear. And you can put a little white tint in it just to make it look like that glaze on there. So as donuts go, that's, you know, pretty decent for what you would get in the store, about the right size. So those are the things that I'm going to work on right now. Thank you, ma'am. And hello to Webster as well. So I think I'm going to start, I guess I'll start with the jelly donut, and I'll fill this one, and I'll show you what I did to, I'll put these guys over here so you can still see them, and we'll sort of chunk them away one at a time. I have some crumb pieces on my desk here. All right. So when you're doing donuts like this, I always say make sure you scale your clay. Buy a little cheap, Amazon's got one for like $8, a little food scale that measures in grams and ounces and stuff like that. Keep it in your craft room. Don't use the same scale for real food that you do for your craft stuff. It's really not the greatest thing. If you're making several of these and you want them to be all the same, weigh out your clay as you're going. I'm not going to do that here, but that's typically how I do it. Now I rolled it into a big ball. I got all my creases out, just rolled it on my surface, or you can roll it in your hands. Hello, Lydia. And then I start going around the edges with my hands like this. I think you can see my dog behind me. He will not leave me alone. Oh, thank you for the stars. I like stars. So I round it out in sort of a mound like that. But donuts are a little, you know, you want to get rid of that edge. I just do that just for the ease of rolling. And then I'll take my surface and I'll bring up those edges to make it just a little more lofty. But you want it a little bit flat on the top. So it doesn't take a whole lot to roll these guys out. It kind of looks like a bun, you know, like a hamburger bun that's homemade that you haven't split in half yet. That's kind of what a jelly donut looks like. So I have this little piece of, let me grab this over here, this little foil ball. It's a great texturizer for things like this. Now I don't want like a super amount of texture on this because jelly donuts are typically a fried donut. Fried donuts don't have as much texture as cake donuts, because I don't know why. It's just, maybe Chelsea can help with that one. Why do fried donuts have less texture than regular donuts? It's something, I guess, with the oil and the batter. It makes it more smooth, like a pancake when it hits your, you know, hits the oil and stuff. So I just added just a little bit of texture on this. And when you put all your topping on it, honestly, you're not going to see it a lot. You may see some more on the edges rather than the top. So, but I do it anyway. I've got a needle tool here, and it has a decent end to it. There's also these little bitty acrylic rollers. You could use anything like that. You could use the end of a chunky paintbrush, just whatever you have to make the hole. And then just sort of figure out where you want your jelly to be, and then just start poking, but leave an area at the bottom as like a shelf. you want your hole to be about maybe 1/4 to 1/3 of an inch up from the bottom. And you want your indentation, you want to really push it in there enough to where you're going to see that, you know, a good enough jelly area. You don't have to go in a ton, but you want to be able to make it hold in there. So you want a decent little, sort of like a little rabbit hole. Hello, bees. How are you? And Nicole, I want a donut too. I haven't had a donut in like 5 years. Since they diagnosed me with diabetes, I have not had a freaking donut. And donuts were one of my, that was like donuts and cheese. Those are food groups. I hate not being able to have donuts. So I got my little rabbit hole in my donut. And then, because these are fried, you'll always see on any donut that's fried, you always have that lighter little fry line. Because when they fry them in the oil, they fry them and then they flip them upside down. So you'll get the two golden areas and then that little spot that just sort of rests on the top of all that liquid, and it doesn't get quite as brown. So you need to make sure when you're painting these things that you leave that little fry line. So I found in the realistic food world that when you paint stuff, it is better and more realistic. Let me grab a glove here. Grabbed about 50 gloves. It's more realistic for your colorings to use layers. Same thing when you're painting landscapes. You want to build things in layers, and sometimes people are like, well, why are you painting over what you already painted? It's really not like that, because paints work in conjunction with each other. Even if they're dry underneath, you can still see variants of what you've put under it. Hey Raymond, how are you? Happy birthday week. I saw you had lots of exciting things coming up. I'm excited to watch, but I may not be able to comment because apparently you can't comment on Facebook with Samsung phones right now. You can only comment with iPhones, and I have Samsung. So if I'm not sitting in front of a computer, I can't comment on anything. I don't know how many of you guys are having that trouble, but I at least found one other person that's having that issue. So, before I'm yakking along here, this is a light yellow color. It's an acrylic paint. This one is Artist's Loft. You can get this through Michael's, I think. This is a Naples yellow. It's a very pale yellow. They make some pale yellow craft paints that work just fine. When you're painting these things, you just want to paint the entire donut. You don't have to be careful. You can just slop it on there. I mean, not slop it. You know what I mean. Just get it on there. This is going to be your base color. And it'll also be the color. I know the fry line does not look yellow, but it is. And that's another thing that happens when you layer your paints. I don't know if any of you guys do like decoupage work and you paint over some of the things that you decoupage on there. You know, you take paints and you do other things with it. If you do that, you know what I'm talking about with, you know, just the way paints, you can paint a whole scene with nothing but yellow paint and it doesn't look yellow when you're done. It looks gray. It's kind of bizarre how paints work in that respect. But the more that I learned about painting when I was doing all of that, before I did all this food, I learned a lot about how paints reacted to each other. So that's why I always layer my paints when it comes to foods. And it seems to work. I'm going to go ahead and shape this other donut. I have the... Is it working for you, Lydia? I guess it is if you're commenting. I don't have like a send button, and Jan from Jan C's Designs, who was on before me, she said the same thing. She could only make comments on her iPhone. And I don't have, I can type the comment in, but there's no send button. There's a little funny arrow there that'll take me to Messenger, but I can't comment on anybody's lives. I've been having trouble with that for a while, but now the whole comment button is just gone. It was, before it was, I couldn't, hi Morticia, hi Brenda and Peggy. Before it was, some of the comments just wouldn't go. I would hit the button or I would try and reply to something and it wouldn't do anything. But now my button is just gone. It's disappeared. So maybe I'm missing some kind of update somewhere. I actually looked. I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the jelly one. I'm going to use my surface, and I'm using my surface mainly because I have arthritis and it's hard for me with something so big like this and chunky. It's a little painful to just like roll it in the air like that. So I try and use my surface just to give my fingers a little bit of a rest. And both of these balls of clay, both for this and this, which I'm getting ready to roll out now, you've got to push on the face in bar. Push on the face in the bar. I will have to look for that. Like, is there like a smiley face there that takes you to... I'll have to look. Because I really wanted to watch Raymond's lives. And I can't ever comment on Raymond's stuff. I just sit there like a ghost. I can't ever do it. I must be missing something. The face in the bar. I will look for that. Thank you, Renee. So I just dug out while I was talking again. I just sort of stick my finger through there and manipulate it and spin the donut as I'm going. It's a sticker icon. All right, I will look. And then I sort of flatten out. I just press and flatten out around the hole to make it look like it's indented a little bit. I'll leave this one up here. And then I just sort of roll it back into shape. And there, not quite. I just sort of spin it and flatten it and roll it until I get a nice donut-like circle. I did some of these for one of the other creators. She wanted some that looked like something that she had gotten as a child, and they were glazed donuts, but they were square. Hi Sheila, I'm glad you're joining us. You're new. That's fantastic. Welcome to my channel. But I made her some square glazed donuts. I've never seen this before, but she said it was like a nostalgia thing from her youth. And they came out super cute. And I was like, well, why don't more people make square donuts? It's totally cute. I loved it. So I'm going to move this guy over here and just let him dry for a minute because I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to use that light yellow paint. I need to get a little bit more water on my brush. You don't want to saturate your brush, but you don't want a dry brush either. You want to have the sort of a happy medium and, you know, a medium amount of paint on your brush. Now I'm just using a flat brush for this, and it's a fairly small one. You can definitely use a larger brush. I always recommend for painting on Model Magic that you use a softer brush instead of a harder brush. It leaves less brush strokes and it doesn't bother the clay as much. So I didn't put any texture on this like I did the jelly donut because I feel like glazed donuts just don't have that kind of texture. And I've kind of eaten a lot of glazed donuts in my life. And I don't think they have a lot of texture, so I'm not even bothering with the texture. Plus, we're going to cover the top in this nice glaze. Now, I also tell people not to paint wet clay unless you have to. And on a live, you kind of have to paint wet clay. But I always recommend that you let your items dry. 24 hours is good. It's a good rule of thumb. If you put it under a fan, you can probably get away with less time. I know you can see my fan in the background over here. I do have a couple of racks over there, and I blow my fan on things a lot just to speed up the process, which you can totally do. And you can do that with foam clay too. So that is our first layer on those two. Get a paper towel here. So I'm going to go back to my jelly, and I'm going to let my glazed donut rest for just a minute. Now I'm going to use, this is another Amsterdam color. It's supposed to be a raw sienna, but it is much more like a yellow ochre, O-C-R-E. Hi Maricela. Hey Annie, how are you? Hi Peggy. So you can see the difference between the Liquitex, which is a professional paint company, and this Amsterdam. You can see that the Amsterdam is much lighter. This is more like a yellow ochre. So that's a color that I use on a lot of baked goods. It's sort of like if you're using craft paint, you can take the territorial beige, an orange, and a little bit like a pinch of yellow, and you can mix them up and you kind of get this yellow ochre color. This one I use for a lot of shading, and I did use it on our apple cider donut over here just because it's a much richer, toastier brown, and I don't have to. Hey Sheila from Oklahoma. Oklahoma. How's the weather in Oklahoma? It's been very rainy here. I was in Oklahoma a couple of years ago. Such a pretty state. Anyway, I'm getting off track again. You fly these little things in front of my face and I get off track. So for my second layer on here, to make these toasty brown colors on here, it's not a terribly dark color. I don't mix it with anything except a little bit of water. And that's what I like about these professional paint colors, because I don't have to take a bunch of different craft paints and mix them all together and try and figure out if I've got it right or got it the same every time or whatever. I just like to grab and go with my paints, because painting is a big deal when you're doing realistic fake foods. You have to kind of paint almost everything that you do. So you need an easier way to do it. So I have a bigger brush here, but I think actually I'm gonna go with have you guys seen these, and you probably use them for your makeup, these makeup sponges that look like big teardrops, and then they have a flat part on here that I guess you're supposed to put your makeup on with. These are great for painting your foods. No brush strokes, like zero. I try and get them just a little bit damp. I'll wet them and squeeze them out, and then I'll leave them overnight, and they're still a pinch damp, but not bad at all. Like there's hardly anything in there. And I'll dip it in my water just a little, and I pick up like just a pinch on there. And I use my parchment paper just to sort of spin it and dance it around and get it on there. And then you can sort of take it. Now I have to remember my fry line on here. You don't want to cover up your fry line. So you can kind of smear and smudge and blend all around your donut. You see how easy that is? You're getting that shading on there easy enough, but you're not leaving any brush strokes at all. And these things are super cheap to get on Amazon or whatever. If you mess up like I just did, you can just quickly run your finger over there and your fry line is back. So don't forget your fry line. If you do happen to paint over your fry line, you can let it dry and you can zip over it with another layer of that light yellow. Easy peasy. And keeping your little, I don't know what to call it, makeup sponge, I guess. Keeping it on a little bit on the damp side helps you just sort of zoom it along on the top of the clay. And if you want to, I do this a lot on pizza crust and cakes and stuff that I'm trying to shade like naked cakes. I'll use these makeup sponges in lieu of the brushes because you just get that nice, I mean, it looks so natural. I just really prefer it for certain things. Certain things it doesn't matter. And in those cases, I just use a nice big soft brush. And there you have, and I mean, how long did that take to do? I mean, hardly any time. And you can really get that up there to where there's just that little bit of fry line on there. I probably left a little bit too much. That's a little bit better, I think. And you can, you know, go back, you can let it dry, you can go back and you can shade some of the edges just a little bit darker. You just, you know, very gently over the top, make it a little bit darker here and there. But that's basically how I do my donuts. Now, the other one still isn't quite dry yet, so I'm going to go on to how I finish these, which is I do the top first with, hi Cece, hi Tisha, you're at Walmart? I'm sorry. Our Walmart here is always so crazy. Anyway, I do my topping first, then I fill it, because if I fill it first and then I go to do my pulverized glass topping or powdered sugar, it can get on your filling and then it won't look realistic. It'll look like there's funky sugar stuff on the filling, and I definitely don't want that. So I usually use my clear icing glaze for this. You can use Mod Podge. You can use, this is a really good product from Liquitex. This is a gloss varnish. Makes things super shiny. It's really very nice. But because I want that ultra gloss look on both of these donuts, I'm going to go ahead and use my, and I know it looks white, but it does dry completely clear. And this is something that I make, and I do sell it, but all I do is blob it. I don't blob it. I use a gloved hand. I need to speak a little better when I'm doing this. A gloved hand, yes. That's what we require, is a gloved hand, like Julia Child would say. You have to kind of think, when you're doing realistic fake foods, you have to think that these could be real foods. You have to make them look like real foods. So you have to channel people like Julia Child. She was my hero for a long time. I really like Julia. So I have that on there. Easy peasy. Just wipes right off your glove. I'm going to zoom back here because I forgot to bring my sugar up. I need to get this. Ooh. Out of my cabinet. I just have some, this is my powdered sugar, and I'm just going to dance that all around the top here. And like I said, you can use the regular sugar that I sell, or you can use this, you can use baby powder, you can use cornstarch, just whatever your go-to powdered sugar is. This one is mine. And then I sort of just give it a little tap on there. Make sure that it adheres correctly. And once it's dry, it will not come off. Like I said, this is a pulverized glass. Hey, Janine. This is a pulverized glass product. And like this one is dry. It will not come off. And when this one gets dry, it will not come off either. So, I'm going to go on to filling these little puppies, which takes the heavy artillery. This is just clear silicone. They sell it in the little squeeze tubes. You don't have to have this giant apparatus for any of this stuff. Because of the volume of stuff that I do, and because it hurts my hands, my husband got me this battery operated one, and I really enjoy using it because I don't have to squeeze. All I have to do is pull the trigger and it comes right out. So I'm just going to put a little of this in a small cup. I don't need a ton. I'm just going to fill 2 little donuts. Normally when I make donuts, I make a lot of donuts. I'm going to grab another glove here. Now the silicone you kind of have to work a little bit quick with because it does harden kind of fast. I have a pastry bag that I'm going to stick it in, and I'm going to use some alcohol inks to color it. Yes, and they also make a hot glue gun that uses the same battery. Stacy, it's amazing. So this is an alcohol ink from Ranger. This is the Crimson, and I just put about 10 drops of that in there. And then this is another one. I don't know what the brand is on this. I have no idea. It came in a little set of several. This is called Garnet Red. It's a little darker. They have a cherry red too that I use for different stuff, but the garnet is a little bit deeper color. I want that nice like raspberry look is what I'm trying to go for. Let's get a popsicle stick here. And then I'm just gonna carefully, because that alcohol ink will splash out of there. You have to be a little careful until you get it going. I want to make a nice deep red silicone mixture. Now you can actually make this chunky if you wanted. I mean, donuts usually don't have the chunks in it unless they're seriously homemade. But I did that ice cream. I don't know if you can see the ice cream sundae back there on the table, but it has chunks of red for the sundae topping on the strawberry ice cream. So you can use things like rose petals or little bits of acrylic in a dark red, and you can make this chunky. You can make little jams out of it. Lots of things you can do with colored silicone. Now I have a little pastry bag here, and this is a little one for sure. Very little pastry bag. And I'm just going to scoop this into the bag. Get it down there. Like I said, I didn't need to make much because I'm only filling 2 little donuts. And I'm going to sort of squidge this down. Take a scissor. And I don't need a very big opening, but bigger than maybe like a 1/4 inch opening on that. Just bigger than a drizzle tip, in other words. So I've got it about like that. And then all you have to do, basically, once you get your topping all dry and all of that, you just go back through and with a little bit of a swirl motion, something is stuck. Wait a minute. I think I have an air bubble. A little bit of a swirl motion. You just sort of get it right on there, and a little bit, I usually keep a little bit like sticking out of the hole, like it's a nice overfilled jelly donut, because that is the way I like them. I hate it when you get a jelly donut and they're not filled. Right? And voila, that's jelly donut. Easy peasy, right? Doesn't take hardly any time to do that. There. So for the glazed donut, I do largely the same thing, but no jelly. But I do use the icing glaze on here. For the second coat of my icing glaze, sometimes I put just a little bit of, hey Deborah, I put just a little bit of ocean white resin pigment in it. I took my glove off. It works really well. Now, I don't have to worry with the glazed donut. I don't have to worry about going too far down in the little hole here. I may have to pick up a little more paint. Because again, there's like that fine space in there that doesn't get brown. And I don't know why. But if you just run this up around the top and up around the bottom, you get it pretty decent. And like I said, I'm rubbing these like this just to prevent brush strokes. And I'm leaving the fry line in the middle for the most part. You just have to kind of make it look natural. And you'll be happy to know that the best way to make fake foods look realistic is to go and buy that food that you're trying to recreate and have it right in front of you when you're doing this. So you could be nibbling on donuts and trying to make the fake replica at the same time. Get you a cup of coffee, and yeah, it's research, ladies, research. So I went around that whole thing with the pouncer. Like I said, easy peasy. It's very quick. It's best if you wear a glove, then you won't have to clean it up as much. And then for the glaze, if you like a little bit of this like white tint on your icing glaze, because I mean they put confectioner's sugar and water and they mix it up and then they make that glaze that they pour over the top. So it's mostly clear, but not all the way. There's white in it as well. If I have any more small popsicle sticks. So that's why I use like the ocean white. Gosh, the ocean white. You can use a little white craft paint because that's already watered down. If you're using, no matter what paint you're using, don't use much. This is the ocean white from Let's Resin. It's just it's a very opaque, very strong white pigment for resin. You can use it with this icing glaze, no problem. It's pretty thick when it comes out. It's not like alcohol ink. It's a pigment. But this little bitty dot that I put, and I don't even know if you can see that dot. It's so small. I won't even use half of this little dot in this. This is probably a 1 ounce portion of the icing glaze. I probably won't even use all of that. Just a little bit on a toothpick, just to give it that little bit of white in there. Now I do make a white icing glaze that I do sell, but it's too white for these donuts. You really can't use it. So for the most part, what you see on there is just the clear glaze with just a pinch of the white in it. And like I said, if you're using craft paint and putting it in here, or if you don't want to use the icing glaze, you can use a little bit of the clear silicone, some Mod Podge, and just a pinch of white paint, like just a pinch. Whip it up in a little cup. You can add a couple of drops of alcohol if you need to get it a little bit runnier, and you can pour it or smooth it with a glove all over your donut. You'll get a similar result. I don't quite like it as much. I really like this stuff. I love this stuff. I use it a lot. And I put it on very thick because I like the shine. I like the way it reacts. I will wait for my donut to dry completely. I'm not going to lie. I don't usually put this on wet items. I wait for my items to dry, and then I'll put it on there. But when this dries, it'll look just like this one. I'm going to get one more glove on here, and then I'm going to show you the. Now you want a donut? Oh gosh. Well, that's not good. But I'll go right down in the middle of the hole here just to make sure that the whole thing is nice and glossy. I don't leave it on tremendously thick. I mean, I do, but I don't. And I don't do the top and bottom at the same time. I'll do one or the other. And then I always put it under the fan. But I get it nice and smooth just with the glove. You can use a popsicle stick. You can use a palette knife. They work really well for this. But that's about how I would put that on there. And then I just put it under the fan and let it go. Oh. Making a heck of a mess today. Donuts are messy business, whether you're making them or eating them. Okay, so I'm going to move this guy out of the way, if I can keep him out of my way. I'm probably going to put my arm in him. Let's hope not. So for how am I doing on time? I only have 10 minutes. All right, I'm going to do the apple donut. Rid of this ripped glove. For my cruller donut, I shaped it just like I did this one. And then I took a little acrylic roller, and all I did was start at the bottom, and I rolled it up to the top, and then I rolled it up to the top, and rolled it up to the top, and then I let it sit for a few minutes, and then I went back with the smaller end. If you have a smaller acrylic roller, that works too. Anything that doesn't stick, and most things don't stick to Model Magic. It's not like foam clay. It's hard to get things to stick to this. But I used my needle tool, and I really pressed in those indentations after about an hour of it sitting there. And then I went back in with the scoring edge of the needle tool, and I pressed in the middle, and I did the same thing on the other side. And then I just put a small indentation with the needle. I went around the whole thing, and I will paint this the same way that I do this with the same two colors, but I don't do the fry line. Crullers typically don't have that. French crullers don't have that. Sometimes you can find them with chocolate that is poured over the top of the ridges, but mostly it's just like this icing glaze. You'll just do that icing glaze all over it and let it dry, and that'll be the French cruller. So this one is just a matter of molding it. For this apple cider one, I did use another product that I have. Marie and Nicole, if you're still on here, I think you are. Marie, you're still on here? Can I have like 5 more minutes than normal so that I can finish this? Please, oh please. For the apple cider donut, and I probably should wipe this little area. Let me get my goo out of the way here. For this one, I went with what I showed you before, this raw sienna in the professional paint that actually looks like a raw sienna. It's darker than the one that we used before. It's more of a brownish, thank you dear, more of a brownish color, and not that more yellow ochre. It's great. I didn't do the bottom on here. Well, I did it with just a base coat, but I didn't do the top. And I didn't roll out another donut, so I'm going to have to do that. I made this one a tiny bit smaller than the other ones because the baked cake donuts are, you usually find those a little bit smaller than you do the big doughy glazed ones and the jelly ones. They're usually a little bit bigger. But like I said, if you're doing like a set of these for a fall display or to sell or to take to a craft show, something like that, you can scent this with the apple pie scent. I also sell that. They are essential oils. I have 32 different food-related scents, and they all smell pretty darn good. They work well with the Model Magic. You can knead it right into your clay, or you can finish it off just by brushing or dabbing a little on the top. It works great with fake pies, cookies. You can make your creations smell as good as they look, and I like using them. So I do sell an apple pie one, which is, it smells pretty good for this. So the cider donut, you can make it smell pretty good. So I'm going to roll this out into a ball. Now coming up, as soon as I finish, you can hop on over to the Great Creations Faux Cupcake page to see Marie and Nicole from Nicole's Great Creations. They'll be doing, I think you said you were going to do a cake today, right? I think she's going to do a cake today. So, get that out of the way. Get this out of the way. I want you to see what I'm doing. That was the point of moving my camera. So again, I start by just sort of flattening the ball down, and then I will take my thumb and my finger, one on each side, and I just sort of squish it together until I've got a center hole, and then I'll just sort of bore out that hole with my thumb, and I press down and sort of just keep spinning it and shaping it until it's the right shape that I want. The cake donuts are not as lofty on the top. It's not really a lofty thing, but they're not quite as thick. It's a thinner, especially the apple cider donuts, they're a thinner, cakier donut. So I tried to make this, you know, press down the top just a little bit more and made it a little bit less poof. You know, when that yeast dough hits that hot oil, it goes poof and makes a lovely creation. But when you just take the stiffer dough that's wound around like a donut and you stick it in your oven, it sort of does that. You know, it doesn't make that poof. So I'm so descriptive, right? I know you're thinking she's difficult. So I have goo all over me. I keep putting my arm in that now. Let's move this just a little bit. All right, so for this one, again, I would let the donut dry completely before I painted it. I have this darker shade of the raw sienna. This is the Liquitex one. It's the darker shade. Let me put this on again. Not that it makes a difference now. You can use the sponge on this or not. It really doesn't matter. I used this is a very soft brush for this. I get a little bit, like a very little bit of water on there, and I just take a little bit of the paint on both sides. And I usually start on the bottom. You see how much richer this color is than this color. There's a big difference between that sort of yellow ochre color and this regular raw sienna. I'm not sure if they make the raw sienna in a craft paint, but they may. I know they make a burnt umber. Now again, I'm not worrying about fry lines with this donut because it's baked and there are no fry lines. So I do the bottom first, and then I'm going to go back over with the top. Now, being pretty generous with the paint and trying not to get too many brush strokes. I'm getting a few on here for sure. So I may go over this with the pouncer. I think I had a little bit too much water in my brush, which happens sometimes. So I'm going to put that aside. But I want this to be covered really well. Yeah, the pouncer actually makes it look much better. And I forgot to texture my donut, but with all this sugar on it, you usually can't see it anyway. If you're doing just regular cake donuts or cake donuts with some icing on them, you'll want to take your little foil ball and texture this very well before you proceed, because the cake donuts do have a ton of texture. It's just like a piece of, cake. I'm sure everybody's seen a cake donut. But if not, do that research. Get you some cake donuts and keep them there, and you can nibble on them as you research for your projects. Got to get it looking right. And if anybody says anything, what are you doing eating all those donuts? You can say, it's research. So for this one, I went back to my icing glaze and I smoothed that over. But you really don't have to. You can use Mod Podge. You can use whatever you want to do this with. I do have some Mod Podge back here. I only have the matte Mod Podge right at the moment because my gloss Mod Podge container is glued together and I can't get it open. So I have to wait for my husband to do that for me. But you can really slather this up with some Mod Podge. And I put it all down in the hole. And I put a pretty generous coat on here because I want all of this glass product to stick that I'm putting on there. And you can go over it twice. You don't have to do it all on the first layer. You can wait until it dries and then go back over it with another layer of the glass. But just for time purposes and the fact that my time is already up. So on the first one, I went with the gingerbread spice glass first. And I didn't like it as well. So I went back and I got this is my salted caramel. So be gone before the research is complete. Now, yep, that's what I like to hear. So this is the salted caramel one. And I'll hold it up here so you can see the chunky parts of the glass in here. This is a pulverized glass product. Now I take a bunch of different glass colors and I mix them to be other things. This mimics the McCormick Spice Company's salted caramel. I posted on my page earlier today, they came out with some new ones for fall, including an apple cider. So I need to do some research and find out what they really look like in person. The McCormick offices is right across the street from where I live. So I have pretty decent access to McCormick stuff. But I love the way this looks, and it sticks pretty well to the Mod Podge. I like the icing glaze for it a little bit better, but like I said, you can do two coats, because cider donuts are usually pretty, get this off the paper without flinging that, they're usually pretty pretty stuffed with the sugar mixture on there. And I'll roll the sides in the stuff that falls off and get it on there. And then when it dries, it'll be something like this. I don't want to lift this one up because I'm all gooey now. But I'll definitely have to put some more on there. I think maybe the icing glaze works a little better than the Mod Podge, but like I said, you can go over it twice and it's not a big deal. So if you want any information or you want any of the products that I showed you, including these sugars, I'll be live tomorrow morning with a live sale that you can get these at a discount. It's a lot cheaper than in my Etsy shop. I also sell the icing glaze in that sale tomorrow. Thursday morning, I'm going to be doing the cinnamon, the gingerbread, the cinnamon dough. That's a baked dough, but you can do all kinds of things with it, and it smells amazing. You can make ornaments with it. So if you want to join me for that one, I'll be back Thursday morning. So if you have any questions on any of this or how I did anything, you can let me know. But that is basically what I know about donuts. So, and if you, I mean, you can make cinnamon sugar ones easy enough. I do sell a brown sugar one that you can mix with actual cinnamon, and you can coat your donuts in those to make like the powdered cinnamon sugar donuts like Entenmann sells and all that. You can make that kind. You can cover these with chocolate or vanilla. You can put sprinkles on them. All kinds of nifty things you can do. So sky's the limit when you're talking donuts. I mean, there's 1,000 different varieties out there. So if you have any questions, let me know. Until next time, this is Andi saying bye for now, and everybody jump over and watch Marie and Nicole. I'll see you next time. Bye.